She found him in the marble foyer, painted in his own blood, cradling two swaddled infants like they were the last sacred things in a profane world. Mariam's delivery bag hit the floor, Thai food containers splitting open, expensive sushi rolling across pristine white tile. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the man dying against the wall and the babies. God, the babies, sleeping peacefully in his trembling arms. You shouldn't be here. His voice was wrecked, barely a whisper. Blood soaked through his navy suit, pooling beneath him in spreading darkness. Leave. Now. But Mariam's feet were already moving, her hands reaching for him before her brain could catch up. 2 years of medical school, 1 year of nursing, she'd dropped out of both, failed at everything. But muscle memory didn't forget. Her fingers found his pulse, weak and thready, found the gunshot wound high on his shoulder, bleeding too fast, too much. I can help, she heard herself say. I can stop the bleeding. You can't. His eyes, gray like smoke, like storms, locked onto hers with desperate warning. You don't know what you're... One of the babies started crying. A soft, heartbreaking sound that shattered whatever argument he'd been making. His arms tightened protectively, his face contorting with pain and love and fear so raw it hurt to witness. Mariam looked at those tiny, innocent faces, made her choice. I'm taking you home, all 3 of you, and sealed all of their fates forever. If you don't subscribe right now, you'll never know if Kenneth survives. You'll never see what happens to those babies. I've poured everything into this story for you. 2 seconds. That's all I'm asking. Don't be that person who regrets missing what comes next. Subscribe, comment where you're reading from. Kenneth woke to the smell of formula and the sound of someone singing off-key. Pain hit him second, a white-hot brand in his shoulder that made his vision blur. He was on a couch. Not his couch. This one sagged in the middle and smelled like laundry detergent and something floral he couldn't place. The ceiling above him had a water stain shaped like a continent he didn't recognize. You're awake. Her voice came from somewhere to his left. Don't try to sit up. You'll tear the stitches. Kenneth turned his head slowly, every muscle protesting. The apartment was small enough that he could see everything from where he lay. Kitchenette with chipped linoleum, bathroom door hanging slightly crooked. A card table covered in medical supplies that hadn't been there in any hospital. And her, Mariam, standing by a window with early morning light washing over her, holding Everly against her shoulder while Emery slept in a carrier at her feet. How long? His voice came out, wrecked. 6 hours. You passed out after I finished stitching. She swayed slightly, that universal motion of someone comforting an infant. Everly made a small sound of contentment. Your fever broke an hour ago. That's good. Means no infection yet. Yet. Kenneth cataloged that word, stored it away. Where did you learn? 2 years of med school, 1 year of nursing. Dropped out before I finished either. She said it matter-of-factly, but he heard the wound underneath. Turns out I remembered more than I thought. He tried to sit up anyway. Had to see them, had to make sure they were real and safe and breathing. Pain lanced through him, sharp enough to make him gasp. I said, don't move. Mariam crossed to him in 3 steps, one hand still supporting Everly's head. You lost a lot of blood. You try to be a hero right now, you'll pass out again, and I'm not strong enough to get you back on this couch by myself. Kenneth forced himself to still, even as every instinct screamed to get up, to check the doors, to prepare for whoever was coming, because someone was always coming. The girls. Fed. Changed. Safe. Mariam settled into the folding chair beside the couch, adjusting Everly in her arms. They're beautiful. What are their names? Emery and Everly. Saying it hurt worse than the bullet wound. They're 3 months old. And their mother. The question hung in the stale apartment air. Kenneth stared at the water-stained ceiling, memory clawing at him. Dead. 6 weeks ago. Car accident. The lie came automatically, smooth as glass. The truth, that Vanessa had been executed as a message, that her blood was on his hands because loving him made people targets. That truth would stay buried. It's just us now. Mariam was quiet for a long moment. her hand moving in slow circles on Everly's back. "I'm sorry. Don't be. You saved our lives." Kenneth met her eyes, those dark eyes that had looked at him bleeding in his foyer and chosen to stay instead of run. "Why? Why what? Why help? You could have walked away, called the police, left us there." His chest tightened, and it had nothing to do with his injury. "Instead, you brought a stranger and 2 babies to your home, performed surgery on your kitchen table. Why?" Mariam looked down at Everly, and something soft and broken moved across her face. "I watched my grandmother die because I couldn't afford her treatment. Watched her gasp for air in a free clinic while I filled out insurance forms that didn't matter because we had nothing. Nothing." Her voice cracked. "I swore after she died that if I ever had the chance to save someone, anyone, I would, no matter the cost. Even if that someone is dangerous?" "Are you?" She looked at him directly now. "Dangerous to them?" Kenneth thought about the empire he'd built, the blood on his hands, the enemies circling. Thought about Victor's coup, about the old guard who saw his daughters as weakness to exploit. "Never. I'd burn the world down before I let anyone touch them." "Then you're not dangerous to them. Just dangerous for them." Mariam stood, moved to place Everly in the second carrier. "There's a difference." Kenneth watched her move around the tiny apartment. This woman who delivered food for tip money, who dropped out of medical school, who wore secondhand clothes and probably counted every dollar. She moved like she'd been caring for his daughters her whole life. Natural and certain. "People are going to come looking for us," he said quietly. "The man who shot me, he won't stop. When he finds out I'm alive, then we make sure he doesn't find out." Mariam turned to face him, and Kenneth saw steel beneath the exhaustion. "You need at least 3 days before you can move without risking hemorrhage. 3 days to heal enough to protect them. So we have 3 days to figure out how to keep you all alive." "We?" She crossed her arms. "You're in my apartment. Your blood is on my table. Those babies know my heartbeat now. Like it or not, I'm already involved." Kenneth felt something shift in his chest, something that had nothing to do with the bullet hole. This woman, this broke, exhausted, beautiful woman, was looking at him like he was worth saving, like his daughters were worth protecting, like she'd already decided they were hers to defend. "You don't know what you're saying yes to," he warned. "No," Mariam agreed. "But you didn't know I'd save your life, and here we are." She moved back to the couch, sat on the edge, close enough that he could smell her shampoo. Something cheap and sweet. "So you're going to tell me everything. Who you are, who shot you, who's coming, and we're going to make a plan." Kenneth stared at her, at this woman who'd stumbled into his nightmare and somehow become its light. "I'm not a good man, Mariam. I don't need you to be good." She met his eyes, unflinching. "I need you to be honest. Can you do that?" In the carriers, his daughters slept on, oblivious to the moment their lives changed forever. Kenneth took a breath that hurt and chose truth. "My name is Kenneth Leonard, and I'm the head of the largest criminal organization in this city." Mariam didn't flinch, didn't run, just nodded once like he'd confirmed something she'd already suspected. "Okay," she said simply. "Now tell me who wants you dead." Kenneth's words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Mariam sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, and Kenneth watched her process what he'd just said. Waited for the fear to dawn, for the realization to send her running. It's what any rational person would do. What she should do. "Criminal organization," she repeated, slowly. "Like drugs? Trafficking? What are we talking about here?" "Everything." Kenneth shifted, ignoring the lance of pain. "Protection, imports, construction contracts, political influence. My family has controlled this city's underground for 40 years, so I inherited it when I was 23. You inherited crime." Her voice was flat, unreadable. "I inherited power." He held her gaze. "And responsibility. 300 families depend on my organization for their livelihoods. Businesses pay for protection they actually receive. We keep worse things out. Cartels, trafficking rings, the kind of violence that makes the news." He paused. "It's not legal, but it's necessary." and someone wants to take that from you. Victor Castellano, my mentor, the man who trained me to take over when my father died. Kenneth's jaw tightened. He thinks I've gone soft, that having children makes me vulnerable. Weak. Mariam glanced at the sleeping twins. So he shot you. He ordered it, sent his best people to my home while the girls were sleeping. The memory burned. I killed 2 of them. The third got a bullet in me before I got to him. I took the girls and ran because staying meant waiting for the second wave, waiting for them to use Emery and Everly as leverage. He'd hurt babies? Mariam's voice dropped to something dangerous. His own, what? His godchildren? Family? He'd kill them. Kenneth said it plainly, brutally, because she needed to understand. Not out of cruelty, out of strategy. Dead children mean I have nothing left to lose, nothing to fight for. I become reckless, emotional, easy to eliminate. It's what he'd do. What he's probably planning right now. Mariam stood abruptly, crossed to the window, stared out at the parking lot like she might find answers in the cracked asphalt. Kenneth studied the line of her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the windowsill. You need to leave, he said quietly. While you still can. I'll be gone by tonight. There are safe houses, people still loyal to me. You can say I forced you, threatened you. Victor's people will believe it. You'll be safe. And the girls? She didn't turn around. Come with me. To where? A safe house surrounded by men with guns? Running from place to place while your mentor hunts you? Now she turned, and her eyes were fierce. That's not safety. That's just a prettier cage. It's survival. It's waiting to die. Mariam moved back toward him, and Kenneth saw something in her he recognized. The same steel he'd needed to take his father's place, to make the hard calls, to carry the weight. You said Victor thinks the girls make you weak. Does he know about me? No one knows about you. You're a ghost. A coincidence. Good. She knelt beside the couch, close enough that he could see the exhaustion shadowing her eyes, the determination burning through it. Then I'm your advantage, the piece he doesn't see coming. Kenneth almost laughed. You're a delivery driver. I'm a delivery driver who just removed a bullet from a mob boss on a kitchen table with no anesthesia. Her voice was steady. I'm a delivery driver who's kept your daughters alive and calm while you were unconscious. I'm a delivery driver who knows how to be invisible in this city, who people don't notice, who can move in places your people can't. She leaned closer. I'm a delivery driver who just became the only person in the world those girls trust as much as you. The truth of it hit Kenneth like a second bullet. Emery and Everly had been crying when he'd collapsed, terrified and confused. Now they slept, peacefully, fed and changed by a stranger who'd become essential in the space of 6 hours. You don't know what you're offering, he said roughly. Victor's people will find us eventually. They'll find you, and when they do, they'll see exactly what Victor sees. A nobody. Someone who doesn't matter. Mariam's smile was sharp. Let them underestimate me. Let them think I'm just the help, just another civilian caught in the crossfire. By the time they realize I'm a threat, it'll be too late. You'll die. Kenneth forced the words out. You understand that? Not might. Will. Victor doesn't leave loose ends. Everyone dies eventually. She stood, moved to check on Everly, who was stirring. My grandmother died drowning in medical debt while I begged strangers for money. I die protecting 2 babies who deserve better? That's not a bad trade? It's a stupid trade. Maybe. Mariam lifted Everly, held her against her shoulder with the ease of practice she shouldn't have had yet. But I already made it when I put my hands in your blood. You don't get to take it back now. Kenneth stared at her, this woman who should be running, who should be calling the police, who should be doing anything except standing in her shabby apartment, holding his daughter like she was precious, like she was worth dying for. Why? The question came out raw. You don't owe us anything. You don't even know us. Mariam was quiet for a long moment, swaying slightly, Everly's tiny hand fisted in her shirt. When she spoke, her voice was soft but unbreakable. I spent 2 years learning how to save lives, then spent 3 years watching myself fail. Failed out of school, failed my grandmother, failed every promise I made to be something more than broke and desperate. She looked down at Everly, then over at Emery, then finally at Kenneth. You know what I see when I look at you three? A chance to not fail. A chance to be exactly what I trained to be. A chance to matter. You'll matter dead too, Kenneth said, but his voice had lost its edge. Then I'll matter dead. Mariam met his eyes. But those girls will matter alive, and that's worth everything. Kenneth felt something shift, settle, click into place. This woman was either the bravest or most foolish person he'd ever met. Maybe both. Probably both. 3 days, he said finally. If you're staying, we do this my way. You follow my orders, you don't take risks, you don't play hero. Says the man who took a bullet protecting his daughters. That's different. Why? Because they're yours? Mariam's smile was sad and knowing. They're mine now, too. You made them mine when you looked at me with that wound and begged me to save you. So we're done arguing about who gets to sacrifice what. She adjusted Everly, who was already falling back asleep. Now tell me everything. Victor's resources, his people, his patterns. Tell me how we keep your daughters alive. Kenneth closed his eyes, felt the weight of the choice settle on his chest next to the bullet wound. When he opened them, Mariam was waiting, patient and immovable, so he told her everything, and prayed he wasn't signing her death warrant. The formula smelled wrong. Mariam noticed it the second she opened the new can, that slightly off scent, like metal left too long in the sun. She'd bought it 3 hours ago from the 24-hour pharmacy 2 miles away, paid cash like Kenneth insisted, kept her hood up and her head down like he'd taught her. But something was wrong. Kenneth! Her voice came out steady, despite the ice flooding her veins. Kenneth, wake up. He was on his feet in seconds, still moving like his shoulder wasn't held together with thread and prayers. 2 days of rest had brought color back to his face, but not caution. His hand went automatically to the gun he now kept within reach. What is it? Mariam held up the formula can, the one she'd just opened to make Everly's bottle. This doesn't smell right. The seal was intact, but the formula, something's off. Kenneth crossed to her in 3 strides, took the can, inhaled. His entire body went rigid. Where did you buy this? Morgan's Pharmacy, the one you cleared. Her heart was hammering now. Kenneth, I fed Emery from the old can an hour ago. This was supposed to be Everly's. Give me that bottle. He snatched it from the counter, sniffed the prepared formula she'd mixed from the old can. His face went white. Fuck. What? Kenneth, what is it? It's in both cans, old and new. He was already moving, grabbing his phone with shaking hands. The old one was tainted slower, breaks down in the digestive system over hours. This new one. He didn't finish, just started dialing. Mariam's world tilted. Emery. I fed Emery an hour ago from the old can. Kenneth, I fed her. Where is she? Mariam spun to the carriers. Emery was sleeping, had been sleeping peacefully since her feeding. Too peacefully. That boneless, heavy sleep that suddenly looked wrong. Looked like. No. Mariam had her across the room in a heartbeat, lifting the tiny body, feeling for a pulse, for breath, for anything. No, baby, please. Emery's skin was too warm, her breathing too shallow. When Mariam pressed her fingers to that delicate throat, the pulse was thready, rapid, failing. She's crashing. Mariam's training kicked in, overriding the panic. Kenneth, she's going into toxic shock. What was in the formula? Arsenic compound. Slow-acting, tasteless, breaks down. His voice cracked. How long does she have? I don't know. Minutes, maybe. Mariam was already moving, laying Emery on the couch, checking her airway, her color, calculating what she had versus what she needed. I need activated charcoal. Saline if we have it. Something to induce vomiting, but she's too small. The risk? Tell me what to do. Kenneth was beside her, his daughter's life in Mariam's hands, his face stripped of everything except raw terror. Please tell me what to do. Mariam looked at this tiny girl, 3 months old, dying because Mariam had fed her poison, had trusted the wrong can, had failed the one job that mattered. Her hands started to shake. I can't. The words broke on the way out. Kenneth, I don't have the equipment. I don't have the training for pediatric toxicology. I can't. Yes, you can. He grabbed her shoulders, forced her to look at him. You removed a bullet with tweezers. You kept me alive with dish towels and thread. You can save her. You will save her. Mariam stared at Emery's tiny chest, rising and falling too fast, too shallow. Thought about her grandmother, about all the people she couldn't save, about every failure that led her to this moment. Then she stopped thinking and started moving. Kitchen, now. I need baking soda, water, coconut oil if you have it. Anything with fat content. Her voice steadied as her hands found purpose. And your phone. I need to look up pediatric dosing for home remedies because this is going to be a nightmare. Kenneth was already pulling things from cabinets, moving despite his injury, despite everything. What are you going to do? Make her vomit up everything in her stomach, then coat her digestive tract to slow absorption. Mariam was mixing, calculating, her hands steady now because they had to be. It's going to hurt her. She's going to scream. But if we don't get that poison out, do it. Mariam lifted Emery, held her against her chest, felt that tiny heartbeat racing under her palm. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. She administered the mixture with a syringe, tiny amounts directly into Emery's mouth, stroking her throat to make her swallow. Within seconds, the baby's body convulsed. She vomited, again and again, bringing up curdled formula that reeked of bitter almonds and death. Emery's screams were high and terrified, and Mariam had never heard anything more beautiful. That's it, sweet girl. Get it out. Get it all out. Mariam held her through the convulsions, through the vomiting, through the horror of what she was doing to save her. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Kenneth's hand was on Mariam's back, grounding her, his other hand hovering near his daughter, like he wanted to take her pain, but couldn't. Is it working? I don't know yet. We need to watch her breathing, her heart rate. Mariam grabbed a clean towel, wiped Emery's mouth, checked her color. Still too pale, but not gray. Not dying. Not yet. The next hour will tell us. Emery's cries were weakening, fading into exhausted whimpers. Mariam administered the oil mixture, coating her throat and stomach, praying it would slow whatever poison remained. Then she just held her, rocking slightly, counting breaths and heartbeats and seconds that felt like years. Victor knows we're here, Kenneth said quietly. His gun was in his hand now, his body angled toward the door. He couldn't find us, so he poisoned the supply chain, every pharmacy within 5 miles probably, waited for us to need formula. How did he know we'd need it? How did he even know about? Mariam stopped, looked down at Everly, still sleeping peacefully in her carrier, because Mariam had opened the new can first, had noticed the smell before she'd fed her. He doesn't know about me. He thinks you're alone with them. He knows someone's helping me. Someone bought that formula. Kenneth's eyes were hard, cold, the crime lord rising through the wounded father. He's putting pressure on every resource, every supply line, waiting to see where I surface. Then we don't surface. Mariam adjusted Emery, checking her breathing again. Still shallow, but steadier. The whimpering had stopped. We have enough supplies for another day if we ration. After that, I end this. Kenneth turned to her, and Mariam saw murder in his eyes. I call Victor. I meet him. And I put a bullet in his skull before he can touch my daughters again. That's suicide. That's the only option. No. Mariam stood, still holding Emery, this tiny girl who'd almost died because Mariam trusted the wrong can. No, you don't get to die and leave me alone with them. We do this together or we don't do it at all. Kenneth stared at her, this woman who'd saved his daughter with baking soda and desperate prayers, who was standing in her apartment covered in infant vomit and looking at him like he was worth saving too. Together, he echoed, and it sounded like a vow. Emery stirred against Mariam's chest, let out a small, healthy cry of protest. Mariam nearly sobbed with relief. She's going to make it, she whispered. She's going to be okay. Kenneth's hand came up, cupped the back of Emery's head with infinite gentleness, his fingers brushing Mariam's collarbone. Because of you. Because we got lucky. No. His eyes met hers over his daughter's head. Because you're exactly who we needed. Who I needed. Mariam felt something crack open in her chest, something dangerous and inevitable. But before she could respond, Kenneth's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire body went taut. "What is it?" "Message from Victor." Kenneth's voice was ice and fury. "He knows we saved her, and he's done waiting." The knock came at 2 a.m. Mariam woke to Kenneth's hand over her mouth and his voice in her ear, barely a whisper. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." She nodded against his palm, adrenaline flooding her system. He released her, moved toward the door with his gun drawn, each step deliberate and silent. The twins slept on in their carriers, oblivious to the danger bleeding through the walls. Another knock. Soft, almost polite. "Kenneth." A man's voice muffled through the cheap door. "It's Marcus. I'm alone. I need to talk to you." Kenneth's entire body was coiled tension. He glanced back at Mariam, jerked his head toward the bedroom. She understood the command. Take the girls, hide, stay silent. But she didn't move, couldn't move. Because that voice sounded wrong, sounded rehearsed. "Marcus is dead," Kenneth called through the door. "Victor killed him 2 days ago." A pause, then a different voice, younger, desperate. Okay, you got me. It's Danny. Danny Reeves. I worked under Marcus." "Kenneth, please. Victor's people are hunting anyone who might know where you are. I just need somewhere safe for a few hours." Kenneth's jaw tightened. He looked at Mariam again, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the terrible math of trust and survival. "He's lying," Mariam mouthed. Kenneth nodded once. He knew, but he unlocked the door anyway. Danny Reeves stumbled in, young and panicked, blood on his shirt that might have been his or might have been someone else's. He looked exactly like what he claimed to be, a scared kid caught in the crossfire. Until his eyes found the carriers. The shift was microscopic, barely a flicker, but Mariam saw it. Saw the way his gaze lingered half a second too long, the way his body angled infinitesimally toward the twins instead of toward Kenneth. "Thank God," Danny breathed. "Kenneth, I swear, I'm not—" "Who sent you?" Kenneth's gun was level with Danny's chest. "And don't lie, you get one chance." "Nobody sent me. I'm alone, I swear." "Your phone is buzzing." Mariam's voice cut through the apartment like glass. Both men looked at her. "Left pocket. It's been buzzing every 30 seconds since you walked in. That's not random. That's someone waiting for a signal." Danny's hand twitched toward his pocket. Kenneth's gun pressed against his forehead. "Don't!" "Kenneth, listen. How much did he offer you?" Kenneth's voice was conversational, almost gentle. "To find us, to confirm we're here with the girls. How much is my family's life worth?" Danny's face crumpled, and Mariam saw the truth written in his features. Guilt and greed and the desperate justification of a man who'd already made his choice. 50,000. He offered 50,000 and protection. Kenneth, I didn't have a choice. He was going to kill me. So you brought him here to kill my daughters instead? No, just to confirm location. He said he just wanted to know where you were. That's all. I didn't think... You didn't think. Kenneth's finger moved to the trigger. That's the problem. Kenneth, wait. Danny's eyes went wide, searching for mercy in a face carved from stone. Please, I have a sister. She's only... The gunshot was deafening in the small apartment. Mariam's ears rang. Danny's body hit the floor, blood pooling beneath his head, spreading across the cheap linoleum she'd mopped just yesterday. The metallic smell hit her immediately, familiar from Kenneth's wound, but so much worse, so much more final. Emery started crying, then Everly. Their screams punctured through Mariam's shock, pulled her back into her body, into the reality of what she'd just witnessed. Kenneth lowered the gun. His hand was steady. We have maybe 5 minutes before Victor's people arrive. He was the tracker, the confirmation. They'll come fast now. Mariam couldn't move. Couldn't look away from Danny's open eyes, from the hole in his forehead, from the youth still written in his features, despite the death stamped over them. Mariam, Kenneth's voice was sharp. I need you present, right now. She dragged her gaze up to him. He stood over the body, gun still in hand, and he looked nothing like the man who'd held his daughters with such tenderness. Nothing like the man who'd watched her save Emery with something close to worship in his eyes. He looked like exactly what he'd told her he was, a killer. "Get the girls ready to move," Kenneth said, already heading toward the window. "Grab only what we can carry. We're leaving in 3 minutes." "You killed him." Mariam's voice sounded far away, detached. "He was just a kid, and you killed him." Kenneth turned to face her, and his eyes were hard, unapologetic. "He sold us out. He led Victor straight to my daughters. What did you think was going to happen?" "I thought—" Mariam's breath caught. "I don't know. Police? Justice? Something other than execution." "Police?" Kenneth almost laughed, bitter and sharp. "Police would take too long, would involve questions and lawyers and time we all, sir, don't have. That boy made a choice that would have gotten Emery and Everly killed. So I made a choice that kept them alive." He crossed to her, and Mariam saw the man and the monster warring in his features. "I told you what I was. I told you this was the cost. If you can't handle it, leave now. I won't blame you, but I won't apologize either." Mariam looked down at Danny's body, looked at the twins, still crying, still needing to be fed and changed and protected from a world that wanted them dead. Looked at Kenneth, covered in someone else's blood again, offering her an exit she'd never be able to take. "If I leave," she said quietly, "who protects them?" "I do." "You can't be everywhere, can't watch them every second while you're fighting Victor." Mariam moved past him, past the body, toward the twins. She lifted Emery first, then Everly, held them both against her chest with practiced ease. "You need me. They need me. Not if you can't accept what I am." Mariam met his eyes over the babies' heads. "I watched my grandmother suffocate because the system failed her. Watched bureaucracy and paperwork kill someone I loved while I stood by and did nothing." Her voice was steady now, certain. "Danny made a choice. You made a choice. I'm making mine." She adjusted her grip on the twins, felt their weight settle against her heart. "I choose them, whatever that costs, whoever that makes me." Kenneth stared at her, searching for hesitation, for judgment, for the revulsion he'd expected. Found none of it. "You understand what you're saying yes to?" His voice was rough. "This isn't the last time. It won't be the worst time. There's no coming back from this, Mariam. No pretending you didn't see, didn't know, didn't stand beside me while I know. She did. God help her, she did. And I'm still here." Something shifted in Kenneth's expression, something raw and grateful and terrified. "Then we go. Now!" He moved to grab supplies while Mariam secured the twins in their carriers, moving around Danny's body like it was furniture, like murder was something she could step over on her way to protecting what mattered. Her hands didn't shake. Her breath stayed even. And somewhere in the back of her mind, in the place where her grandmother's voice used to whisper prayers, Mariam felt the last piece of her old life fall away. She was committed now, to Kenneth, to the twins, to whatever darkness came next. The apartment door burst open 90 seconds later, but they were already gone, disappeared into the night with 2 babies and blood on their hands, bound together by choices that couldn't be unmade. The safe house smelled like cedar and old cigars. Kenneth's remaining loyalists had secured it within hours, a cabin 40 miles outside the city, surrounded by woods thick enough to hide an army or bury bodies where nobody would find them. Mariam tried not to think about which option was more likely. She was feeding Everly by the stone fireplace when the front door opened without warning. Kenneth's gun was up before Mariam could scream. 3 men walked in, hands visible, faces grim. The one in front was older, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Mariam's entire year of rent. Victor Castellano. She knew him instantly from Kenneth's descriptions, from the venom in Kenneth's voice, every time he spoke the name. "Hello, son." Victor's voice was cultured, almost warm, like he was visiting for Sunday dinner instead of walking into a war. "I see you've been busy playing house." "Get out!" Kenneth's finger was on the trigger. You have 3 seconds before I paint the walls with your skull. Then you'll never know the truth. Victor's eyes slid to Mariam, then down to Everly in her arms, then across to Emery, sleeping in her carrier. About your daughters. Or should I say, daughter. Singular. Mariam felt ice crystallize in her veins. Kenneth's hand wavered for just a fraction of a second. What are you talking about? Kenneth's voice was lethal calm. Victor smiled. It was a terrible expression, paternal and cruel. Did Vanessa ever tell you about her affair? No, of course not. She was too smart for that. He pulled a manila envelope from his jacket, tossed it onto the coffee table between them. DNA results. Took me 2 months to get them after the girls were born. Vanessa was very careful, but everyone makes mistakes eventually. You're lying. But Kenneth's voice had lost its certainty. Am I? Victor gestured to the envelope. Look for yourself. Emery is yours. Perfect match. But Everly? He shook his head with mock sympathy. Everly belongs to Thomas Reyes. You remember Thomas, your former lieutenant, the one Vanessa spent so much time with when you were busy building your empire. The one who died 6 months ago in that unfortunate shipping yard incident. Mariam looked down at Everly, this tiny girl drinking her bottle with complete trust, complete innocence. She looked exactly like Emery. Same nose, same chin, same way her fingers curled when she was content. It doesn't matter. Mariam's voice cut through the tension. She's still his daughter. Is she? Victor's attention snapped to her, predatory and sharp. That's the question, isn't it? Kenneth Leonard, the great crime lord, raising another man's bastard? Pouring his protection, his resources, his love into a child that isn't his blood. He took a step closer. How long before the organization finds out? How long before they realize their leader was cuckolded, humiliated, made a fool of by a dead lieutenant and a faithless wife? Kenneth's hand was shaking now. Get to the point. The point is simple. Give me the organization, walk away with your real daughter and your little nurse here, and I'll make sure Everly goes to Thomas's family. They deserve to know they have a granddaughter. Victor's smile widened. Or don't, and I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. Your enemies will smell blood in the water. Your allies will question your judgment. And that baby, he pointed at Everly, will become a symbol of your weakness for the rest of her life. Mariam felt Everly finish her bottle, felt her small body relax into sleep against Mariam's chest, felt the absolute trust radiating from this child who knew nothing of DNA or betrayal or the ugliness of the men deciding her fate. Kenneth, Mariam's voice was steady. Look at me. He did, reluctantly, his eyes wild with something between rage and devastation. Do you love her? Mariam asked simply. What? Everly, do you love her? Kenneth's gaze dropped to the sleeping infant. She's my daughter. That's not what I asked. Mariam stood, crossed to him, placed Everly in his arms before he could protest. Do you love her? Yes or no? Kenneth looked down at Everly, at her tiny face peaceful in sleep, at the way she instinctively curled into his chest, even unconscious. When he spoke, his voice broke. Yes. God help me. Yes. Then she's yours. Mariam turned to Victor, and she'd never felt more certain of anything in her life. Blood doesn't make a father. Love does. Showing up does. Holding them when they cry, and feeding them at 3 a.m, and being willing to die to keep them safe. That's what makes them his. She took a step toward Victor, fearless despite the gun on his hip, despite the men flanking him. You think revealing this makes Kenneth weak? You're wrong. It makes him stronger, because he chose her. Every day he chooses her. That's not weakness. That's power. Victor's expression flickered, something like surprise crossing his features, before the mask slid back into place. Pretty speech. Doesn't change biology. No, but it changes everything else. Kenneth's voice was clear now. Certain. He held Everly with one arm, raised his gun with the other. I don't care whose blood runs through her veins. She's mine. They're both mine. And I will burn your entire empire to ash before I let you touch either of them. You're outnumbered, Victor gestured to his men. Outgunned. Out of options. Am I? Kenneth's smile was cold. You came here with 3 men. A skeleton crew. Know why? because the rest of your people are back in the city, waiting for you to confirm the kill, waiting for you to call and tell them you've eliminated me and secured my daughters." He shifted Everly carefully, protecting her, even as he aimed for Victor's heart. "But you can't make that call if you're dead. Shoot me and my men kill you and your nurse. Shoot him and I'll make sure Everly grows up knowing her father died protecting her." Mariam's voice was ice. "Shoot him, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Victor Castellano is remembered as the man who tried to use a baby as a weapon. I'll tell everyone, the organization, the police, the media. I'll make you famous for all the wrong reasons." Victor studied her, really looked at her for the first time, saw past the cheap clothes and exhausted face to the steel underneath. "You'd die for them, for children that aren't even yours. They are mine." Mariam moved to stand beside Kenneth, beside Everly, forming a wall of protection. "The second I chose to save them, they became mine, and I protect what's mine." Silence stretched through the cabin, broken only by Emery's soft breathing from her carrier and the crackle of the fire. Victor laughed, sudden and genuine. "Well, this is unexpected." He looked at Kenneth. "You always did have a talent for finding loyalty in unusual places. Your father would be proud." He turned toward the door, his men following. "This isn't over." "Yes," Kenneth said quietly. "It is. One way or another, this ends now." Victor paused at the threshold, glanced back. "Then I'll see you at the council meeting. 3 days. You know the place. Come alone or come with your army, I don't care. But come ready to prove you deserve to lead." His eyes slid to Mariam. "And bring your nurse. I'm curious to see what else she's capable of." The door closed. The engine started. Gravel crunched under tires, fading into distance. Mariam's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the couch, adrenaline crash hitting her like a physical blow. Kenneth was still standing, still holding Everly, staring at nothing. "She might not be mine." "She is yours. Biologically." "Fuck biology," Mariam's voice cracked. "I watched you hold her through a fever. Watched you change her diaper with one hand while your shoulder was still bleeding. Watched you look at her with the same love you give Emery. That makes her yours. That makes her more yours than any DNA test ever could." Kenneth finally moved, sat beside Mariam, Everly still cradled against his chest. "What if everyone finds out?" "Then they find out." Mariam leaned her head on his shoulder, exhaustion making her bold. "And they'll see a man who loves his daughter regardless, who chose family over pride. If that makes you weak in their eyes, then their eyes are worthless." Kenneth was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me what matters." He looked down at Everly, pressed a kiss to her forehead. "For staying. For everything." Mariam closed her eyes, felt the warmth of Kenneth beside her, the weight of the choice she'd made settling into her bones. 3 days until the council meeting. 3 days. What do we do until then? Kenneth's arm came around, her shoulders pulling her closer. We survive. Together. And in the firelight, with 2 babies sleeping and danger circling like wolves, Mariam felt something like peace. Just for a moment, just long enough to remember why she was willing to fight. The next chapters will destroy you in the best way, but you'll miss it if you don't subscribe. Don't let that happen. Hit that button. Now. They came at dawn, when the twins were just waking and Mariam was heating bottles in the kitchen. The first window exploded inward with a spray of glass and gunfire. Mariam hit the floor on instinct, bottles shattering around her, formula pooling like spilled milk. The twins started screaming, that primal infant terror that cut straight through her chest. "Mariam!" Kenneth's voice from the bedroom, sharp with pain and fury. "Get down!" She was already crawling toward the living room, toward Emery and Everly in their carriers, toward the only thing that mattered. Bullets chewed through the walls above her head, plaster raining down like toxic snow. Kenneth appeared in the bedroom doorway, gun raised, his face gray with pain. His shoulder, the one she'd stitched back together with thread and hope, was bleeding again through his shirt. He'd torn something, pushed too hard, moved too fast. 3 men came through the shattered window. Professional, coordinated, the kind of soldiers who killed for money and slept fine afterward. Kenneth dropped one with a headshot, but the recoil made him stagger, made his next shot go wide. The second man tackled him. They went down hard, Kenneth's gun skittering across the floor, his injured shoulder taking the impact. He didn't scream, but Mariam heard the sound he made, that airless grunt of agony. The third man was already moving toward the twins. Mariam didn't think. She grabbed the cast iron skillet from the kitchen counter, heavy, solid, still warm from breakfast she'd been planning to make, and swung it with every ounce of desperate strength in her body. It connected with the man's temple with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. He dropped like someone had cut his strings, blood streaming from the impact site, unconscious, before he hit the ground. Mariam stared at the skillet in her hands, at the blood and hair stuck to the metal, at what she'd just done. No time for shock. Kenneth was pinned beneath the second man, trying to fight one-handed while his shoulder screamed protest. The man had his hands around Kenneth's throat, squeezing, Kenneth's face going purple. Mariam raised the skillet again, brought it down on the back of the man's skull. Once, twice. He slumped sideways, either unconscious or dead. She didn't know and didn't care. Kenneth gasped for air, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading fast across his shirt. "Victor, where's—" "Right here." Victor walked through the front door like he owned it, gun in hand, but pointed at the floor. Casual, confident. Behind him, 2 more men flanked the entrance, blocking any escape. "Impressive." Victor's eyes moved from the unconscious guards to Mariam, still holding the bloody skillet. "Your nurse has more spine than I gave her credit for. Leave." Kenneth tried to stand, couldn't quite manage it. "This is between us, Victor. Let them go." "Let them go?" Victor laughed. "Kenneth, they're the only reason I'm here. You I could kill from a distance. But I wanted to see her. Wanted to see this woman who's convinced you to throw away everything for 2 babies, and a fantasy of domestic bliss." He raised his gun, pointed it at Mariam. "I wanted to watch her face when she realizes she can't save you this time." Mariam's mind raced. The skillet was heavy in her hands, but useless against bullets. Kenneth was injured, bleeding, unable to fight. The twins were screaming behind her, exposed and vulnerable. But Victor was talking. Still talking. Men like him always needed the audience, needed the moment of triumph before the execution. So Mariam gave him what he wanted. "You're right," she said, voice shaking just enough to sound defeated. "I can't save him." She let the skillet drop from her hands with a clang. "I'm just a delivery driver. What was I thinking?" Victor smiled, relaxed, fractionally, his gun lowered by inches. Mariam grabbed the electric kettle from the counter, still boiling, still heating water for formula, and hurled the scalding contents directly at Victor's face. He screamed. The gun went off, bullet wild, punching through the ceiling. His hands flew to his face, skin already blistering, eyes clenched shut against the pain. Mariam was already moving. She kicked Victor's knee with everything she had, heard something crack, watched him go down. His gun clattered away and she dove for it, fingers closing around metal still warm from his grip. The 2 guards raised their weapons. Mariam fired first. She'd never shot a gun before. The recoil nearly broke her wrist, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. But the bullet found its target, punching through the first guard's shoulder. He went down clutching the wound. The second guard hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for Kenneth to grab his own fallen weapon and put a bullet through the man's leg. Suddenly, the cabin was quiet except for groaning and the twins' fading whimpers. Victor was on the floor, her face burned, knee shattered, gasping with pain and rage. His guards were down, injured but alive. Mariam kept the gun trained on Victor, her hands remarkably steady, despite the earthquake in her chest. "Kenneth?" "Alive." His voice was strained. "Barely." "Good." Mariam moved to Victor, pressed the gun against his temple. "Call them off. All your people, every single one hunting us. Call them off or I pull this trigger." Victor laughed, through his pain, bitter and sharp. "You won't. You're not a killer." "I just shot a man." Mariam's voice was ice. "I beat 2 others unconscious with a kitchen pan. I threw boiling water in your face without hesitation. You think I won't put a bullet in your skull to protect those babies? She pressed harder, watched him flinch. Try me. Victor's remaining eye, the one not swollen shut from the burns, studied her, saw the truth there. You've changed, little nurse. You changed me. She grabbed his phone from his pocket, held it to his face. Call. Now. Victor made the call, ordered his people to stand down, to return to the city, to wait for further instructions. His voice was steady, despite the pain, authoritative, despite the defeat. When he hung up, Kenneth had managed to stand, was leaning heavily against the wall but upright. His eyes met Mariam's across Victor's broken body. What now? Kenneth asked. Mariam looked down at Victor, at this man who'd tried to destroy their family, who'd used babies as weapons, who'd almost won. Now we keep him alive. Take him to the council meeting as proof of what happens when you come for what's ours. They'll kill us both, Victor spat. The moment you walk in with me as your prisoner, the old guard will execute you. Maybe. Mariam handed the gun back to Kenneth, moved to check on the twins. They were calming now, sensing the danger had passed. Or maybe they'll see a man who defeated his greatest enemy without his full strength. A man strong enough to show mercy when he could have killed. A man worth following. She lifted Emery, then Everly, held them both close. Either way, we're going to that meeting. All of us. And we're going to end this. Kenneth stared at her. This woman who'd gone from delivering food to defeating trained killers in the span of a week, who held his daughters like they were the most precious things in existence. Who'd just changed the entire game with boiling water and a cast iron pan. You're terrifying, he said quietly. Mariam smiled, tired and fierce. Good. That's what we need right now. She looked down at the twins, at their perfect faces, and felt the weight of every choice settle into her bones. Let's go finish this. Kenneth collapsed the moment they secured Victor in the basement. He'd been holding himself together through sheer will, through adrenaline and necessity, and the kind of stubborn refusal to show weakness that Mariam recognized because she wore it like armor too. But the second Victor was bound and the immediate danger had passed, Kenneth's legs gave out. Mariam caught him before he hit the floor. Barely. He was heavy, dead weight against her, his blood soaking through both their shirts now. The girls, he gasped. Are they sleeping? Safe? I need you to focus on staying conscious. Mariam half-dragged, half-carried him to the couch, her muscles screaming protest. She laid him down, started cutting away his shirt with kitchen scissors. The stitches had torn completely, the wound angry and weeping, infected despite her best efforts. I can't do this again, she whispered, staring at the damage. Kenneth, I can't keep putting you back together with thread and hope. You need a hospital, real doctors, antibiotics I don't have. No hospitals. His hand found hers, grip weak but insistent. They'd report the gunshot wound. Victor's people would find us before we made it to the council meeting. You might not make it to the council meeting anyway. Mariam's voice cracked. This is infected. If it gets into your bloodstream, then you'll fix it, like you fixed everything else. Kenneth's eyes were fever bright, his skin burning under her touch. You're the only person I trust, Mariam. The only one. She wanted to scream at him, to shake him, to make him understand that trust wasn't enough when you were dying of sepsis in a cabin with no medical supplies and 2 babies depending on you both. Instead, she got to work. She cleaned the wound with the last of their rubbing alcohol, Kenneth's body going rigid with pain, but no sound escaping his clenched teeth. She packed it with honey, the only natural antibacterial she had, and restitched with hands that shook but held steady enough. She covered him with every blanket in the cabin, trying to manage the fever that was climbing by the minute. Tell me about them, Kenneth said suddenly, his voice distant. About Emery and Everly when they're older. What do you think they'll be like? Mariam kept working, kept her hands busy so she wouldn't have to look at his face. Emery will be fierce, a fighter. She already has your stubbornness, won't sleep unless she's ready, screams when she wants something until she gets it. Kenneth almost smiled. And Everly. Everly will be gentle, observant. She watches everything, takes it all in before she reacts. She'll be the one who thinks 3 steps ahead. Mariam tied off the final stitch, pressed gauze against the wound. They'll be brilliant and strong, and nothing like the world that tried to kill them. Will they remember me? Kenneth's question was barely a whisper. If I don't make it to that council meeting, if this infection, will they remember I love them? Stop. Mariam's hands stilled. Stop talking like you're dying. I might be. You're not allowed to die. She finally looked at him, at this man who'd become her entire world in the span of days, who'd shown her what it meant to fight for something worth saving. You don't get to save me from poverty and purposelessness and a life of barely surviving just to leave me alone with your daughters in a world full of people who want them dead. That's not fair, Kenneth. That's not... Her voice broke. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold back the tears, the terror, the overwhelming weight of everything she stood to lose. Kenneth's hand touched her knee, weak, but there. Mariam, look at me. She did, tears streaming freely now, past caring about dignity or strength or any of the armor she'd learned to wear. If I don't make it, Kenneth said slowly, carefully, you take the girls and you run. There's money in offshore accounts, people who owe me favors. You disappear. You give them a life away from all this. No. Yes. His grip tightened fractionally. You're strong enough, smart enough. You've proven that 10 times over. They'll be safe with you. They need their father. Mariam grabbed his hand with both of hers, held on like she could anchor him to life through sheer force of will. I need... The words caught in her throat, too big and terrifying to speak. Kenneth, I can't do this without you. Something shifted in his expression, fever and pain giving way to clarity. You're not just staying for them anymore, are you? Mariam couldn't answer, couldn't admit what had been growing in her chest since the moment he'd looked at her with trust in his eyes, since she'd held his daughters and felt purpose flood back into her empty life. Since he'd killed for them, and she'd killed for them, and they'd become something inseparable. I'm staying because this is my family now, she finally said. All of you, and I don't abandon my family. Ever. Kenneth pulled her down to him, ignored the pain it must have caused, pressed his forehead to hers. I'm terrified, he whispered against her skin, of failing them, of dying and leaving them with nothing but blood and violence and enemies who won't stop, of not being enough to keep them safe. You're not alone in this. Mariam's hands cupped his face, feeling the fever burning through him. Whatever happens, at that council meeting after, whatever consequences come, we face them together. You, me, Emery, and Everly. That's the deal. That's the promise. Even if it means you can never go back to your old life? My old life was dying slowly in a delivery van, counting pennies, mourning everyone I couldn't save. She pressed her lips to his forehead, tasting salt and fever and desperation. This life, fighting beside you, protecting those girls, this is the first time I've felt alive since my grandmother died. So yes, even if it costs me everything, especially if it costs me everything. Kenneth's arms came around her, weak but steady, pulling her down until she was lying beside him on the narrow couch. Careful of his wound, their bodies pressed together like they could fuse into something stronger than either of them alone. Promise me something, he breathed into her hair. Anything. If I fall tomorrow, if the council turns against us, if this all goes wrong. His voice was fading, exhaustion and fever pulling him under. Promise me you'll tell them I love them. Tell them their father died trying to give them a better world. I promise. Mariam held him tighter, felt his heartbeat against her chest, irregular but present. But you're going to tell them yourself. You're going to survive this fever and that meeting and everything after. And we're going to build that better world together. Kenneth's breathing deepened, evened out. The fever hadn't broken, but he was resting, finally, his body surrendering to what it needed. Mariam stayed pressed against him, listening to every breath, monitoring every heartbeat, refusing to sleep because sleep meant not watching, not protecting, not being ready for the moment he might slip away. In their carriers by the fire, Emery and Everly slept on, innocent of the vigil being kept, innocent of the love that had become their shield against the darkness. "I've got you," Mariam whispered to all three of them. "I've got all of you, and I'm not letting go." Outside, dawn was breaking. In the basement, Victor waited, and somewhere in the city, a council of killers prepared for a meeting that would decide everything. But here, in this moment, there was only warmth and breath and the fierce, unbreakable promise of a family forged in blood and choice. Mariam closed her eyes and held on. The warehouse smelled like old concrete and older blood. Mariam walked 3 steps behind Kenneth, Victor stumbling between them with zip-tied hands and a face still blistered from boiling water. The twins were with Kenneth's most trusted guard, hidden in a safe location with instructions to run if they didn't return by dawn. It was the hardest thing Mariam had ever done, leaving them behind. But Kenneth was right. Bringing babies to a council of killers was signing their death warrants. The old guard sat in a semicircle of folding chairs, 12 men who'd built empires on violence and cunning. They looked like businessmen, lawyers, executives. Only their eyes gave them away. Flat, calculating, the eyes of apex predators evaluating prey. "Kenneth," the eldest spoke first, his voice like gravel grinding. "You've called this emergency session. Explain yourself." Kenneth shoved Victor forward. The man fell to his knees, still defiant despite his injuries, despite everything. "Victor Castellano attempted a coup. Poisoned my daughters, sent assassins to kill them in their sleep, tried to destabilize my leadership by questioning their parentage." Kenneth's voice was steel. "I've brought him to you for judgment." Silence. Then Marcus Vieri, second in command of the old guard, laughed. "You've brought us your mentor, the man who trained you, who gave you this position?" Marcus stood, circled Victor like a shark scenting blood. "And you expect us to condemn him for what? Pointing out your weakness? Testing whether you're fit to lead?" "He tried to murder children." Kenneth's hand moved toward his gun. "That's not a test. That's treason." "No." Another voice, cold and certain, Isabella Chen, the only woman on the council and arguably the most dangerous. "That's strategy. Your daughters make you vulnerable, Kenneth. Victor was right to exploit that. The fact that you couldn't protect them without help." Her eyes slid to Mariam. "From a civilian proves his point." Mariam felt the weight of 12 gazes settle on her like crosshairs. "Who is she?" Marcus demanded. "And why is she still breathing?" "Her name is Mariam Harrison." Kenneth's voice didn't waver. "She saved my life, saved my daughters' lives. She's proven herself more valuable than half the people in this room." "She's a liability." Isabella moved closer, studying Mariam like a specimen. "A civilian who knows too much, has seen too much. She becomes leverage the moment our enemies discover her." Her smile was razor thin. "Victor may have failed his coup, but he's right about one thing. Sentiment is weakness. The girl dies, tonight, as a gesture of good faith that you understand what leadership requires." Kenneth's gun was out before Isabella finished speaking, aimed directly at her head. "Touch her and I'll paint these walls with every one of you." "Kenneth?" Marcus's voice held warning. "No." Kenneth's finger moved to the trigger. "You want to talk about weakness? About leadership? I defeated Victor with limited resources, a bullet wound, and yes, her help. She's taken down trained killers with a kitchen pan. She's saved lives I thought were lost. She's shown more loyalty in 1 week than some of you have shown in years." His aim shifted to Marcus. "So here's what's going to happen. Mariam stays. Victor faces consequences for targeting children. Our one fucking rule. And anyone who disagrees can test me right now." The warehouse went silent. Marcus exchanged glances with Isabella, with the others. Mariam saw the calculation happening, the weighing of options, the moment they decided Kenneth had finally broken, finally shown the fatal flaw they'd been waiting for. "So be it." Marcus reached for his weapon. Kenneth fired first. The shot echoed like thunder. Marcus dropped, a hole in his shoulder, his gun clattering away. Kenneth swung toward another council member, reaching for his piece. Fired again. The man screamed, clutching his leg. Anyone else? Kenneth's voice was Arctic fury. Anyone else want to threaten my family? Isabella raised her hand slowly, deliberately. You've just declared war on the council, Kenneth. You understand that? There's no coming back from this. Good. Kenneth kept his gun level. Because the old council just died. The council that thinks targeting children is acceptable strategy. The council that sees loyalty as weakness and love as liability. That ends tonight. And what replaces it? Isabella's eyes were sharp. Your benevolent dictatorship? Your little family playing house while the empire burns? Mariam stepped forward. She'd been silent until now, watching, waiting for her moment. No, what replaces it is accountability. Every eye turned to her. You're right that I'm a civilian, Mariam continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I don't know your world, your rules, your history of violence and power. But I know what I've seen this past week. I've seen Kenneth fight for his daughters with everything he has. I've seen him show mercy when he could have killed. I've seen him build loyalty through respect, not fear. She moved to stand beside Kenneth, shoulder to shoulder. That's not weakness, that's evolution. That's what lets you survive when the old ways crumble. Pretty speech, Isabella said. Doesn't change the fact that you're a security risk. Then make me an asset. Mariam met her gaze without flinching. You need someone who can move in civilian spaces, someone who people underestimate, someone who can be your legitimate face while Kenneth handles the shadows. I'm already in this deep. Make me useful or kill me, but stop pretending I'm just some helpless girl who stumbled into your world. I chose this. I choose them. And I'm not going anywhere. The silence stretched. Kenneth's gun remained raised, his body coiled and ready, but Mariam saw something shift in his expression, pride mixed with terror. Isabella studied Mariam for a long moment. Then she laughed, sharp and genuine. You know what? I believe you. She looked at the rest of the council. She's got more spine than most of our soldiers. And Kenneth's right. He won. Against Victor, against impossible odds, against everything we thought would destroy him. Maybe it's time we acknowledge that the old ways aren't working. Isabella, one of the other members started. Shut up, Thomas. Isabella's voice cut like a blade. Victor tried to kill children. Children. We have exactly one rule that separates us from animals, and he broke it. Kenneth brought him here for judgment. So let's judge. She turned to Victor, still kneeling on the concrete. Guilty. Exile or death. Kenneth's choice. Kenneth lowered his gun slightly. Exile. Let him live with the failure. Isabella nodded, looked at Mariam. And you? You want to roll? Fine. External relations. Legitimate business. You're the face no one suspects. But you fuck up once, you endanger us once, and I'll kill you myself. Understood? Mariam nodded. Understood. Then it's settled. Isabella stood, gestured to the wounded council members. Get them, medical attention, and someone get Victor out of my sight. She turned back to Kenneth. You've got your new order. Let's see if you can hold it. Kenneth holstered his gun. His hand found Mariam's, squeezed once. Gratitude and relief and something deeper. They walked out of that warehouse together, past Victor's broken body, past the old guard's judgment, into a night that smelled like freedom and consequence in equal measure. We did it, Mariam whispered. We survived, Kenneth corrected. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Living with what we've become. He pulled her close, pressed his lips to her temple. Together. Mariam leaned into him, felt the weight of their new reality settling like armor around her shoulders. Together. Whatever came next. For the twins. For each other. For the family they'd built from blood and choice and desperate, impossible love. 6 months later, Mariam stood in the nursery of their new home and barely recognized herself in the window's reflection. Gone was the exhausted delivery driver in a stained vest. The woman staring back wore tailored clothes that actually fit. Her natural hair styled with care instead of shoved under a hood, her eyes clear and rested for the first time in years. She looked like someone who belonged in this penthouse overlooking the city. in this life she'd stumbled into and somehow claimed as her own. "They're finally asleep." Kenneth's voice came from behind her, soft with the careful quiet of a parent who'd learned not to wake sleeping babies. "Everly fought it for an hour. I think she's getting your stubbornness." Mariam turned, smiled. Kenneth looked different too. The wound in his shoulder had healed to a clean scar. His face had lost that haunted edge of a man being hunted. He moved through their home with confidence instead of constant vigilance, though she knew he still checked the locks 3 times before bed, still kept a gun within reach of every room. Some things didn't change. Some things shouldn't. Isabella called. Mariam crossed to him, let him pull her close, still marveling that this was allowed, that this was real. "The Port Authority deal went through. We're officially legitimate in 6 more sectors. Because of you!" Kenneth pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Your negotiations, your connections, your ability to make criminals look like businessmen. Isabella was right. You're the best external relations person we've ever had." "I just talk to people." But Mariam felt the pride warm her chest. She'd spent 6 months learning this world, learning how to navigate between Kenneth's shadows and the daylight world of permits and contracts and handshakes that meant as much as blood oaths. She was good at it, better than she'd ever been at delivering food or half-finishing medical degrees. This was what she'd been, meant for all along, protecting her family by building them a bridge to legitimacy. "Emery asked for you today." Kenneth's voice held amusement. "Wouldn't settle until you came home. Called you Mama." Mariam's breath caught. What?" "Clear as day. Mama." Kenneth pulled back to look at her, his eyes soft. "Everly's been saying it for weeks, but you keep missing it. They know who you are, Mariam, who you are to them." Tears burned behind Mariam's eyes. She'd avoided thinking about what she was to the twins, afraid to claim a title that felt too big, too permanent, too sacred. They had a mother. Vanessa had carried them, birthed them, loved them for the brief time she'd had. "I'm not trying to replace—" "You're not replacing anyone." Kenneth cupped her face, forced her to meet his eyes. "You're exactly what they need, what we all need. You think I don't see it? The way you've built this family from nothing, the way you've made us stronger, safer, better than we were. I just did what anyone would—" "No." His voice was firm. "Anyone else would have run, would have called the police, would have saved themselves and let us burn. You stayed, you fought, you chose us over and over again." He kissed her then, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that still felt like a revelation. "You're not the help, Mariam. You're not the nurse or the delivery girl or the civilian we're protecting. You're my partner, the twins' mother, the person who holds this family together." Mariam kissed him back, poured 6 months of gratitude and love and fierce protectiveness into it. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I never thought I'd have this," she whispered. "A family, a home, a purpose that doesn't feel like I'm drowning." "Neither did I." Kenneth's arms tightened around her. "I thought I'd die in that foyer, thought Victor would win, thought my daughters would grow up without me, hunted and vulnerable and alone." His voice roughened. "You saved us. In every way a person can be saved." They stood like that, wrapped in each other, listening to the city breathe below them and their daughters sleep safe in the next room. The penthouse was secure. Guards, cameras, every precaution Kenneth's paranoia could devise. But more than that, it was home, their home, built not on blood and violence, but on the choice to protect what mattered most. "Do you miss it?" Kenneth asked quietly. "Your old life, before all this." Mariam thought about the delivery van, the constant exhaustion, the bone-deep loneliness of going to sleep every night knowing nobody needed her. Nobody would miss her if she disappeared. Thought about her grandmother's death and the way grief had hollowed her out, left her going through motions without purpose. "No," she said honestly. "I don't miss it at all." "Even knowing what it cost, what you've become." Mariam pulled back, met his eyes directly. "I've become someone who matters, someone who protects instead of just surviving, someone who has a family worth fighting for. She touched his face, traced the line of his jaw. I've become exactly who I was always meant to be. I just needed you three to show me. Kenneth smiled, real and unguarded in the way he only ever was with her. Come on, let's check on them one more time before bed. I like watching you watch them sleep. They walked to the nursery together, stood over the twin cribs like sentries guarding something precious. Emery was sprawled on her back, one arm thrown dramatically overhead. Everly was curled on her side, thumb halfway to her mouth. Both of them perfect, healthy, safe. Thank you, Kenneth whispered, so quiet Mariam almost missed it. For what? For delivering that order. His hand found hers in the darkness. For being brave enough to step into that foyer. For choosing us when you had every reason to run. Mariam squeezed his hand, looked at her daughters, because they were hers now, blood or not, and felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace, belonging, home. Best delivery I ever made, she said. And she meant it. Outside, the city glittered with possibility and danger in equal measure. Inside, a family slept safe, bound together by blood and choice, and the kind of love that could survive anything. Mariam Harrison had come to deliver an order and found her purpose instead, found her family, found herself, and she would protect all of it with everything she had, for as long as she lived. That was the promise. That was the truth. That was home. So that's it. A delivery driver became a queen. A dying man found salvation. 2 babies got the family they deserved. You experienced all of it, every heartbeat, every impossible choice, completely free. Now I'm asking for 2 things. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next. And comment. Tell me what you felt. Tell me which moment broke you, which character you'd die for, what this story made you remember about your own life. Because those words, they're what keep me writing at 3 a.m. when I'm exhausted. They're proof this mattered. So what's it going to be? Subscribe, comment, and stay for the journey, or disappear and leave me wondering if any of this touched you at all. The choice is yours.